Welcome to The Conversation. Hello. This is The Conversation with your host, Shannon Taylor. Featured guest is Dr. Bernhard Rosenberg. And I understand you have a new title.
Yes, sir.
What might that be?
I'm doing a study on the Palestinian Authority and where and how their anti-Semitism is being communicated around the world.
And with our honored guest is my honored father, Michael Taylor, 93, and he comes fresh from a function at the Carlebach Synagogue of New York City and world fame, where Dr. Bernhard Rosenberg was the featured speaker, and the subject was, how did the Holocaust of World War II take place, and can it happen again? And my father was the guest of honor for the entire day of the Carlebach Synagogue. And Dad, what did you think of Dr. Rosenberg's remarks?
Wonderful, unbelievable. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And Dr. Rosenberg, what did you think of the experience?
I liked the people at the Carlebach Shul, so that was fascinating. And there are some interesting questions. Tonight, I would like to spend some time not only speaking about this heroic gentleman who fought back during the Holocaust, but also trying to convince the second generation, which is us, to get involved in preserving Holocaust memory, which I think is in trouble.
Well, first, let's say that you have a new book coming out.
Yes.
And what is the name?
It's called Echoes of the Holocaust, and it should be out in about 2 months. It has a representation of your father, the actual Holocaust survivors, of the second generation, which is ourselves, and of the third generation, which will be the grandchildren.
And a guest on this show the last 2 weeks, Commander Eugene Leibowitz, is inside.
He is in that book, and it's about over 600 pages so far.
Oh.
And it has photographs, archival photographs.
It has poems, it has photographs, it has essays, it has everything that a person wants to learn about the Holocaust.
And to give some background of our expert, I would like you to know that he was appointed by former Governor Christie Whitman to be the leader of the New Jersey Commission on Holocaust, Education and Preservation. He has been the rabbi for the last generation of the temple in Edison. He has many posts and doctorates and has taught at many universities throughout the country, especially the Tri-City area, and he has counseled, above all else, this is the most important factor, he has counseled many second generation and other Holocaust survivors who suffer from all kinds of stress factors regarding the growing up and the memories and the associations with one of the ultimate tragedies of not only the 20th century, but of mankind's tragic history. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
And let me just show you some of the works of this prolific author, Theological and Halakhic Reflections on the Holocaust. For our audience, that is a very Bible-steeped Talmudic analysis for the layman. And we have Contemplating the Holocaust, which is an endless subject, which everybody does, especially those who want to repeat it. They first want to deny it while they're planning to repeat it. And so I urge you to contemplate it and see what it is that everybody discusses. And then the Holocaust as seen through film, a teacher's guide to movies, documentaries, and short films to impact your students for the classroom discussion. Something that should be in every classroom and in every school, because it was never taught for the longest time, certainly not when I was in school, and I went to Tufts University before I learned about it from Saul Robin Gittleman, and my mentor at Tufts, who taught German expression and Russian and Yiddish literature to hundreds of Gentiles each year, nationally honored throughout the country, and wrote From Shtetl to Suburbia, and he and many others pioneered the teaching of the Holocaust, people who weren't religious, people who remained secular, not Zionist. They taught it as a study in the ultimate social depravity of law gone wrong, and the courts of New York State teach it as law gone awry, because everything was done through law. hidden half most of the time, but through law. The Nazis came to power through law, passed everything through law, and my father and his family had their property and their freedoms and their lives taken away through law. Am I correct, Dad?
Yeah, of course.
To Poland a few years ago, and I have the documentation of the property that my parents and their parents owned. I went to the town hall in this town, it's called Władysław, and I showed the paper to the lady, who was very nice, and she said, yeah, it's true, the parking lot of the municipal building here in Władysław belongs to you, but the mayor unfortunately is busy and cannot talk to you. So obviously I will never get that property back. Yes, they did take it, and I'll never see it again.
And Dad, when you went back to Brussels, to your house, after the war, after you fought the resistance and the Allied forces, to a successful victory over the Nazis, your house was occupied by foreigners, right?
Right, by people.
And they wouldn't give it back to you?
No.
And the government wouldn't give it back to you?
Also not.
And your property was in the house and you couldn't take that either?
No.
All they gave you were the pictures you had hidden in the attic
Right, yeah.
before you left when the bombs fell on the undeclared war in Belgium.
Right,
And the same was true with property in France.
yes.
And to this day, there's been no compensation from Belgium or France.
No.
And Dr. Rosenberg, in terms of preserving through memory the Holocaust, the law is now a champion of trying to restore some of this property through compensation, and I'm getting articles from you about how corrupt that we find many of the committees and commissions are that are formed from us to restore our property. Is this true?
Well, without naming the authority that's involved, I'm the only rabbi worldwide that's been attacking them for year upon year upon year. And the reason being is that they control the monies, billions of dollars, that came out of Germany recently. And through theft and other means, $65 million of that was stolen. And I want to share with you that we have Holocaust survivors in Israel and here and around the world that are poor, that don't have money for food, don't have money for medicine, and people said they can't believe that because all Holocaust survivors, they must be in real estate and they must be multimillionaires. Well, it's not true. I fight every single day of my life to try to get funds for these impoverished Holocaust survivors. They're not getting the money. This organization has $1 billion on hand, and they're just waiting. They're waiting for the last Holocaust survivor to die so they can just take this money and give it to museums, whoever they think is correct.
And you sent me also an article that Israel had a foundation for many years now that had constituted an entity to go to various countries and document what property belonged to whom, and for want of $2 million, Israel cannot sustain the viability of this organization this coming year. Is that true?
That's correct. They went broke, and had the other organization given them the $2 million, which is really pittance compared to the $1 billion they have, this wouldn't happen. But the bottom line is, I can tell you for a fact, nobody cares about the little Holocaust survivor that's still in existence. I get phone calls every day from 2Gs that have psychological problems. I get phone calls from actual Holocaust survivors who tell me they can't survive. And I make phone calls right and left, and I get them the money one way or the other. But it's not right.
When we hear that for want of money, Israel came to form all these organizations. And then we hear that there is so much money being sent to keep alive our enemies and Gaza, where Israel provides oil and gas and distributes hundreds of millions of dollars so terrorists can come out of Jericho and Jenin and Shechem. How is it that the money is there for them and the money is not there for the Jews who survived the Holocaust and made their way to Israel and America?
Well, the whole world, in my opinion, and you know I'm very outspoken, is based upon money. And money means corruption. And corruption means that dollars are given underneath the table, stolen, and used for people's benefit. That's why so many of the political leadership in Israel and here in America have recently been taken up in the various courts. They're a bunch of thieves.
Well, we invite on this show, we invite anybody from any organization in charge of distribution to come on and present the case and present the figures. We certainly are here as an open forum. No view is presented as the view. And we have been involved in Holocaust education. My father's gone to more than 36 colleges and high schools, and we've sent judges and diplomats and ambassadors all over for 20 years, and open discussions with all mixes of peoples. And we invite everybody to come on and strut your stuff. Tell us what has been done, isn't true, is true. And we've had experts, survivors from all different countries. We started the education of the Armenian Holocaust in the schools, and now that Turkey is not so much of an ally anymore. We still invite Turkey. We invited Turkey before, but we started that education as well. And we would like to get to the bottom. There's the famous movie, The Woman in Gold, which was thanks to, I believe, Ron Lauder, that justice was done in that case, and Austria fought it hand in glove for more than 10 years after keeping these paintings, which have been proven to have been illegally kept by Austria all these years, seized through the Nazi hierarchy from the rightful owners. Am I correct on this history?
Absolutely.
All right, so that's just one example. So tell me more about your experience at Carlbach.
Well, people ask some very interesting questions. The one question they didn't ask was, where was God during the Holocaust? And I was surprised that question wasn't asked.
Well, everybody there was religious.
Right. So someone said to me, why didn't you bring it up? I said, you didn't bring it up, I didn't bring it up. So I'll bring it up here on the show. Where was God? I don't know. How do I know? I don't have a direct line to God. I know rabbis are supposed to have, but I don't. My answer is that if you're a religious person, you believe that God was involved, meaning that punishment was given to the Jewish people, as it says in the Bible in the Tochacha section, where that the deeds of the evil individuals will be punished. Personally, I have a problem with that. So in my own understanding of God and the Holocaust, I basically say, look, you survived out of luck, and if God helped you and God is luck, that's great. Some people left the Holocaust religious, some left the Holocaust atheist, some came in being atheist and became religious, some came in religious and turned out atheist. This book has all the answers you want. And I can tell you for a fact, after you're through reading all this with all the answers that's in here, you still won't know. It's really your belief. You want to believe that God was punishing the Jewish people? It's up to you. I have a problem with that. The reason I have a problem with that is my whole family, except my parents and one cousin, were annihilated during the Holocaust. So what did you have against my siblings? What did they do to you? What did a baby do to you? You know, why are you punishing? So I have a problem with that. But to be honest, there are people who have no problem saying that it is predicted in the Bible, and there it is, and thus it happened.
Dad, what was God to you in the Holocaust?
Well, I believe in God, that God was behind me all the time, and He saved my life until now.
And God gave you visions?
Visions. As a matter of fact, in a dream, God spoke,
Speak up.
God spoke to me that your sister will be taken away, and there's going to be a big massacre in the Jewish people.
And this was more than 75 years ago.
Yes.
When you were 15.
And when I heard Jeff Jabotinsky talking that the Jews will get out before they get killed, and this got me more excitement.
And today we celebrate the Zev Jabotinsky Day. And what is your reflections on Zev Jabotinsky?
He's a hero. He's a hero. But let me comment on your father's dream. My father had a dream. I asked my father, who died 32 years ago, Alav Shalom, I said, I'm an only child. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, vis-a-vis the displaced persons camp in Germany. I said, why are you allowing me to leave town, an only child, to become a rabbi after going through the Holocaust? Mm-hmm. So he told me this story. He said he was lying by a tree and he had a dream. His father, who I know for a fact, was shot in the streets and put in a wagon because my first cousin saw it. He said his father came back to him and said, tomorrow you will be freed. And lo and behold, he was freed the next day. So then I said, well, what do you think about God and the Holocaust? You know? And he answered me, it's in the Bible. And that was his answer. It's in the Tochacha, the warning section of the Bible.
A warning. But the point being that Jabotinsky said there will come a fire that will burn the Jews in Europe, and he said that in the 20s. Mm-hmm. And he was in Israel forming the original first beginnings of what would become the Israeli Defense Forces and the Jewish Brigade. And he went to Europe and he went to Jewish communities, and there were others. And he said, they're coming. And Mein Kampf, that said Hitler is coming to power to wipe out the Jews, was written in 23. And the rabbis of Europe, by and large, said the shtetl is our home, and Israel is not, and the Zionists are socialists, and not, and the religious Zionists were in the minority, and there were still plenty, and there was still a majority of Jews in Jerusalem. And the Jews who said let's go to Israel were in the minority compared to the majority of Jews. So it was the Jews themselves who did not motivate an exodus when they could have gone, because the British white paper restrictions did not really take in force until the middle of the 30s, and it was the Jewish leadership in America and elsewhere in Europe that was very wanting, because you had plenty of Jews who, like my father, who wanted to go, and there was Jewish money that was wanting, and Jabotinsky was stoned by Jewish leadership and died of a broken heart in 1940 in New York. So before you would blame God, my opinion would be you would blame first the culprits and the allies of the Nazis and the rest of the world nations for helping it take place or turning a deaf ear and a blind eye, and then you would turn to the Jewish leadership and the Jewish communities themselves. Before you would, of course, God gave warnings. God always gives warnings, and Jews, like with Jeremiah and with Isaiah, they always look the other way and stone the prophet. Am my analysis factor in?
100% correct. Let me just share a few things. When I speak to the average Holocaust survivor, and there are not too many of them, so God bless you, mm-hmm. and I say to them, why didn't you leave? And I didn't really understand this until I actually went to Poland and Germany and other places. For the average Holocaust survivor that lived in a little shtetl, they didn't know what was going on throughout the world. They had no concept of it. If you lived in Warsaw, if you lived in Krakow, yes, but not in the little shtetl. So they said to me it was like a tsunami. Out of nothing, it came, and it was too late to do anything.
They had 20 years.
But they didn't know.
They had leadership. Who knew?
So the problem with the leadership, and you're not going to like this answer, a lot of the rabbinical leadership made sure they were saved. And their students were saved. But my grandparents and my aunts and my uncles and my brother and sister, they could, just be destroyed. So I have no love for these rabbis who did nothing. There was only 3 mass demonstrations here in America during the time of the Shoah, of the Holocaust. And one of them was led to the White House, and Roosevelt was told by Rabbi Wise not to bother with it, not to come out. So even the few that did demonstrate, they weren't heard. And in contemplating the Holocaust, it's very interesting, I have a section on all the newspaper articles in the New York Times and in the paper coming out of Great Britain, where it talks about the Holocaust in the end of 42. So all you had to do was look in the newspaper on page 30 maybe to see how many Jews were dead. So by 43, you already had 2.5 million Jews that had gone to the crematoria or had died of typhus. So the word was out. America did nothing.
And that's what makes Jabotinsky and those like him, and Wallenberg and those like him so special, and those in the resistance so special, because they stood out. And Wallenberg ended up murdered for his and the whole subject was silenced when my father came home, and the leaders of the Jewish community in America, like Stephen Wise, had a halo on him when it was Ben Hecht and Ralph Cook, who created the War Refugee Board with Henry Morgenthau, and when he finally stood up to Roosevelt, and all the anti-Semites in the State Department, and 50% of America and England was rabid anti-Semites with Father Coughlin and the others that you mentioned. So today we have in France, in Variety magazine, an article saying that the Muslim population by and large in Paris is defacing every monument and telling the Jews to go home. And the government is being petitioned. Do we not protect our citizens? Can our citizens be treated like this all over again? And they're basically being told to flee to Israel. So what should be the response? Is this true? Is France belong in NATO with this kind of attitude? Is France an ally? Is France to be a partner to negotiations over Israel? Is this going to exponentially develop throughout Europe? What is the future when this is happening in the streets of Paris and nothing supposedly is being done?
We're living in 1933, Germany. And the establishment Jews, liberal Jews, are not waking up, just like they didn't wake up in 1933. Most Jews are very happy with the agreement with Iran. Doesn't bother them one iota. The top senators in our country who are Jewish, it's more important for them to go up the ladder politically than it is to fight for the Jewish people. So, same thing. We are repeating the never again of 1933, which may be the next Holocaust coming up very soon.
Dad, what was it like in France when you fled there from Belgium? Was there an attitude to save Jews at first, and did it diminish when the Nazis took over from Italy and from Vichy, or was it always hostile to Jews?
It was always hostile against the Jews. For instance, when I escaped from the camp and I saw little children taken away, and I escaped and I went to Lyon and I warned the Jews from Belgium. There was 1,000 Jews there, and I told them I saw children and women, and men, everybody from the gas chamber, and they didn't believe it.
But first they did the foreign.
Because they had in Lyon, they had a big place for Jews, and they have houses, and they were perfect for them. So I met the Rabbi Galanta in the middle of the group, and I told him the story that what I saw is you better get out and save the people. He said to me, well, I have 3 children, and I go in the wilderness. I'm not an animal. So I said to him, I'll be an animal, and I'm going over there. So overnight, I came back in morning. Every Jews were taken away in one night. Only the French Jew that didn't touch.
About 6 months later, they took them.
Yeah.
And every year since, Rabbi, they have a special program on a special day mourning the fact that France gave away its citizens. Now, is that no longer the case? Do they no longer mourn the fact that they're forcing their citizens out?
Well, here, as you know, I'm very outspoken. And
I didn't cross my mind.
Right, and we go back a long way. The problem with being outspoken,
Yeah.
as with the case of Jabotinsky, is people call you every name in the book.
As they did him.
As they did him, which is fine. If that will be my legacy, I'm very satisfied. As former
But it's the
chairman,
Jews who do this, no one else.
correct. As former chairman of the Human Rights Commission for 10 years, and the Interfaith president for about 10 years, I can tell you that I've asked for the Muslim community that I attend events with to come out en masse and say what's wrong with extreme Muslims and to say what's wrong with ISIS, even though ISIS is killing Muslims. Where are they? You see, they're not here. They do make statements at their own events where they have 20 and 30 different politicians, that they do. But ask them to come into the streets of New York, where are they? They're nowhere to be found.
Tahiri writes in the New York Post that there are scholars here and there, but I think they're basically afraid.
Well, you know, you and I have been so outspoken, and we've been threatened, the two of us. You got to have guts, and you got to speak out.
Well, I have my wisdom and guts from my father and mother. You got to have parents who give you that. You have to have an environment to give. Ron Tarosian is speaking tonight as at the synagogue on 62nd Street for Americans for Safe Israel. They have plenty of guts, and they honoring Jabotinsky and Mark Langfan, Alan Friedman, Charlie Bernhard, all my friends over there. They have guts, and they've been on the street with the Iran rally. There are a few of us.
All right. I challenge the Muslim community here in New York and in New Jersey now. I want to see a mass demonstration of Jews and Muslims. I'm still waiting.
Well, we had debates at the Westside Institutional Synagogue. It was filled with thousands of people. I had Muslims there. They certainly weren't on our side, and strangely enough, they were young, and they're both deceased who were there. So I want to thank you very, very much for coming.
My pleasure.
I know you're extremely busy, and to my
Thank
father, God bless you.
him.
Yeah.
And all the survivors, and in honor of Zev Jabotinsky, and your book is, again,
Echoes of the Holocaust
and it'll be available.
in about 3 months.
How does one reach you?
Well, it will be on Amazon. You'll be able to see it when you go on
Well,
Amazon.
how does one contact you?
Chaim Dove at AOL.com.
That's ChaimDov at AOL.com. Thank you from Blacks and Jews in Conversation and Not for Profit, and we will look forward for you next week. And peace and good health from Shannon Taylor and the rest of us. Good August should be cooler.
Excellent show.